Moving on, we have SwordCraft. So we start off with the legendary 7 drop 4/5 Roland the Incorruptible. Her skill, she has Ward. Okay, 7 cost 4/5 Ward. The skill better be good because the stats are quite underwhelming. Fanfare summon a Duranto the Incorruptible if there isn't an allied Duranto the Incorruptible in play. So her skill, generally stat-wise, she's pretty bad, but only stat-wise. Her skill, which summons a Duranto the Incorruptible, which I believe is at the back here. Duranto the Incorruptible is an amulet, 7 cost, but you won't be playing it, it will just be summoned. Enemy followers, spells, and amulets can't deal more than 4 damage at a time. It's an interesting card, which means I think I'm correct to say that if a 7 attack follower attacks your leader or anything else for that matter, its damage will be capped at 4. So it can't deal, the maximum damage it can deal is 4, even though it has an attack higher than 4. Same goes for spells and amulets, which means things like your to take for example, if you use things like Mighty Dwarf or Elf Queen or even Deep Wood Anomaly, if they hit, they only do 4 damage. And I think, I'm not very sure because of how this is worded, but I think this effect also is capped by Duranto, so it can only if you have Duranto in play and you hit the opponent with this card, I think you don't die. I think the damage that's done to you is capped at 4 also. So it's definitely a good card with all the new game-breaking mechanics. It helps SwordCraft survive in the late game because SwordCraft has generally been known for its early game and its mid-range game. I don't really see a lot of control SwordCrafts, but I do know they exist. So it's a good card to help you survive, especially since she has Ward, which buys you some time, and then you summon Duranto, which buys you more time, I guess. And the thing about it is, the moment you summon Duranto, she needs at least she needs to take at least damage twice to die because she's 4/5. The moment you summon Duranto, the max she can take is 4 damage. Then the next time she has to take 1 more damage to kill. So it can make trades extremely awkward for your opponent. So following that, we have Gawain of the Round Table. He's a 4 cost 3/4, which is pretty good. And his skill, whenever this follower attacks, subtract 1 from the cost of all commanders in your hand. It's good to note that he's only an officer, and when he subtracts cost of commanders in your hand, I'm thinking this card will go into a deck which plays mostly commanders, I guess, because I think his effect could have been better if it, instead of subtracting 1 from all the commanders, if it subtracted 1 from all the officers, it would be stronger. But this is what Side Games has given us, so we would attempt to work with it. It means that he can subtract from Roland, he can subtract from, I think, Captain Walfrid as well, and quite a few other commanders. Things like Albert Levin Saber, and a few other cards that are quite useful when they're cheaper. But generally, I don't think his effect is the strongest. He's enhanced 6 skill, gain +1/+1 and rush. It helps for trading on the board, I guess. You get a 4/5/6 cost with rush. But I don't think his effect is the strongest at all. So the trend, at least I see within the legendaries given this set, is one legendary is extremely strong, where it's a game-breaking effect. Like you have Roland, which basically allows you to survive for extremely long since damage is capped at 4. You have Deep Wood Anomaly that helps you. It game breaks simply by destroying your opponent in 1 hit. And the second legendary is usually a more utility kind of legendary. This one is to survive, this one helps you get things out for cheaper. So that's the general trend I see. So yeah. Following that, we have Captain Walfrid. He's a 8 cost 5/5, which is extremely bad stat wise, except that his skill is pretty strong. His skill, Fanfare, give +2/+2 to all other allied followers and give all other allied followers ward. So simply he sets up a defensive wall for you, assuming you have other allied followers on the board. That's his one weakness. If you do not have any other allied followers on the board, playing him would basically give you a net outcome of -3/3. Because you really need at least one other follower to get even like a near to break even with his skill. Because he's 8 costs, 5/5. If you get one follower, you get a +2/+2, so it's around 7/7 with ward. I guess that will make up for the 8 mana. But then you only get a surplus if you have 2 or 3 followers in play that get buffed up with his skill. So he's a good card, but his conditions are quite hard to fulfill because you need at least a decent board still standing when you play him. And because of his expensive cost, which is 8, you only have 2, assuming you're at 10 play points, you only have 2 other play points to play things before you play him. So really you need a board to stick before you can play him, which is kind of difficult. Next we have a very interesting card, I like this one a lot. 5 cost Amulet, Support Cannon. Its skill, whenever an allied commander is played, deal X damage to an enemy follower, where X equals the attack of the commander. If there are no enemy followers in play, deal X damage to the enemy leader instead. So basically what this card does is if you play a commander, you deal that damage to an enemy follower. If there are no enemy followers, it deals it to the face instead. So if you play Support Cannon, then after you play Captain Walfrid, he'll do this card will do 5 damage to any one of the enemy followers or the enemy face if there's no enemy followers in play. It's a very strong card, no doubt. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make us have a high number of commander deck, high number of commanders deck. Basically, you play this card down, then you play a bunch of commanders. This card helps to clear the board, and then your commanders can straight go to face. The only downside I see of this card is its high cost, but I think in the long term, if the game drags on for a long time, this card will be very strong because anything you play will have its damage, will have its attack done. It will basically have a free hit to something before it actually attacks, which is quite strong, especially if you play like a big commander, such as what big commanders are there? I don't know, maybe Leonidas. Then you deal 7 damage to something, and then after that, when Leonidas dies, he still drops another amulet that buffs everything else. So very good card. Next we have a 3 cost Captain Lisha. It's also a commander, so it synergizes with the Support Cannon. It's a 3 cost 2/3, which is not bad. And her skill, Fanfare, all other allied followers can't be destroyed, can't be damaged or destroyed by spells and effects until this follower leaves the area. So it's basically like Elf Child Lisa, except that the effect is permanent until she leaves the field. Her cost is 1 more higher than Elf Child Lisa's, but so is her health, and her effect is permanent, so I think it balances out quite well. It's an extremely strong card because it protects your field from removal spells. The only downside is Elf Child Lisa includes herself in this effect, and in her skill she only protects allied officers, so any allied commanders, including herself, will not be protected. But her job is mostly to protect other allied followers, so that the following turn you can buff them up using things like Captain Walfrid. So she's a very strong card for preserving the board, which is what SwordCraft needs to win their game. So it's a very good card, and I think most SwordCraft decks would run her. So next up we have Jolly Rogers, 6-drop 5/6, not too bad. Fanfare, randomly gain Rush, Bane, or Ward. Sure. So let's analyze this one by one. Assuming he gets Rush, he just trades. He's a 5/6 Rush that trades into something. That's fine. Assuming he gets Ward, he's a 5/6 Ward that protects the field. It's okay. Assuming he gets Bane, I think honestly out of these options, Bane is the worst one to get because it doesn't really help your immediate situation, so to speak. You get Rush, he can trade. You get Ward, he protects. You get Bane, you have to wait until the next turn to use him, and by that time he might get removed from the board. And he's a pretty high cost as well, so if he is removed, you really lose a lot of tempo. At least Rush or Ward helps you buy some time and tempo, but Bane really isn't that good. So I like this card in the aspect that the RNG can be fun, but I don't think it's the most practical card to run. Excuse me. Next we have Luminous Mage, which the first time I saw it I thought Luminous Knight, and yep, her skill includes the Luminous Knight. So I also like her art, how it includes the Luminous Knight's like shadow, I guess, behind her. So she's 5 cost 2/3, kind of bad, but her skill makes up for it. Fanfare summon a Luminous Knight. In case anybody doesn't know, Luminous Knight is a 2/1, and evolution points won't be used when you evolve allied commanders. Now, the thing about this card is, despite being a 5 cost and a pretty stat deprived card, I'm thinking this card is gonna be used in aggressive or mid-range decks. Simply because her skill, summon a Luminous Knight, that's fine. Luminous Knight's skill is when it evolves, give all other allied officers +1 attack for that turn. So Luminous Knight is a more aggressive card, and since she's very cheap to play, as long as you evolve her, you can buff your field by 1 attack for each allied follower you have. Which means if you play her, then you summon the Luminous Knight, you evolve the Luminous Knight into a 3/2, the Luminous Knight will buff the rest of the board, which attacks. So I can see it being used in aggressive decks for just pushing for damage, and I also can see it being used in mid-range decks where the Luminous Knight will buff up the rest of the commanders, the rest of the officers, and make trading easier for the board. And of course, if your opponent doesn't remove her in the next turn, her effect of evolution points not being used will stay, which means you generate much more resources, which is awesome. So she's generally quite a good card, personally I feel. Next you have a 4-drop, 4 cost 2/3, Shrouded Assassin, Ambush, Bane, end of story. So as you can probably tell, even though a few expansions ago they tried to make a ambush based SwordCraft deck, it didn't work out that well, and so far I don't think I've seen a single person try to play ambush SwordCraft before. So that's that, but this card generally I feel is still quite playable, because even though it's 4 cost 2/3, it has Bane to it, which helps it force remove something, and ambush itself helps the card survive so it can remove something. That's about it. That's the best I can say. Oh my god, the amount of, I guess this video will go on quite a while because this expansion is quite long. So next we have Luminous Standard. Whenever an allied commander comes into play, give it +1/+1. So this card is the one that helps out with your Luminous cards, I guess you call it, Luminous Mage and Luminous Knight. Simply, Luminous Knight will give all allied followers +1/+1. Luminous Standard gives all allied commanders +1/+1. So, did I say Luminous Knight gives all allied followers +1/+1? No, Luminous Knight gives all allied followers, all allied officers +1 attack. Luminous Standard gives any allied commander that comes into play +1/+1. So, I guess what this deck, the Luminous deck, will try to play is just playing commanders and playing officers and just buffing them up by quite a bit of stats. And it's a very board the deck fights for board a lot because it gains a lot of stats while it does what it does. That sounded forced. So next you have Tristan of the Round Table. It's a 5-cost 3/4. Stat wise it's not the strongest. His skill, Fanfare, if an allied commander is in play, gain last words, summon a Tristan of the Round Table. So if you have an allied commander in play, he becomes a 6/8 that in total, which is pretty good. For 5 cost you have a 6/8, but of course you need the allied commander in play, which is not the most difficult requirement actually. So I think he's not bad as just like a 1 or 2 off if you play him. But his stats, like standalone, his stats are not exactly the strongest. So I would play him, but I don't think too many copies of him is good, because if you run out of commanders, then he's just a dead 5/3/4. So next you have Vagabond Frog. Why is this in SwordCraft? I have no idea. His skill, at the end of your turn, gain Ambush. You see, this is a very interesting card, and I think this might be the one card that might become playable with the Ambush SwordCraft. Reason why Ambush SwordCraft wasn't played a lot is simply because Ambush is a one-time thing. Once you have a follower with Ambush attack, it's done. They no longer have Ambush. They no longer get the benefits of Ambush. On the other hand, this card, at the end of your turn, gain Ambush. So you can play him, attack, then at the end of the turn he gains Ambush. If you have the Amulet in play, Rogue's Creed, he gains the +1/+1. Then at the start of the next turn, he loses Ambush, you attack, then he gains Ambush again. So he's a constant Ambush card, which I think is actually very strong and very interesting. And I don't think he will be good enough to get the Ambush SwordCraft rolling, simply because there's only one variant of him. Only he has his skill. He's the one unique card with his skill. So I don't think he's strong enough to get the Ambush SwordCraft moving, but it's a start, and he can be run in other generic SwordCraft decks as well. Following that, you have Naval Guard Simon. Yes, I said Simon, not Simon. It's a 2-cost 2/2. Okay, that's fine. Enhance 6, gain +3/+3 and ward. So yeah, that's about it. Generally, I don't think it's a bad card. You can probably replace like Veteran if you really want to play towards the mid-range and the late game. You can replace Veteran Lancer or any other 2-drop with him, because he gets more flexible. In case you don't have anything to play in the mid game, you can play him for a 5/5 with ward. So it's pretty good. Last but not least, we have Spring Cleaning. It's a 1-cost Bronze Amulet. Countdown 3, so it lasts 3 turns. At the end of your turn, randomly discard one of the highest cost cards in your hand and draw a card. Reason I think this card is going to be extremely useful. One of SwordCraft's main weaknesses is not having things to play. If I have seen terrifying SwordCraft before. They get the perfect curve, they play everything on the perfect curve, and they really just go to town on you. The only problem they face once in a while is they don't have things to play in the early game. So this card helps to cycle that. You play it down, and you can discard cards, your highest cost cards, and then draw new cards to hopefully get something to play. Also, it's because of Duranto. After, you really only need to play one copy of Roland on the board. Basically, after you play her, she summons the Duranto Incorruptible. The next time you play her, you will never summon another Duranto again if your Duranto is already on the board. Which means she will be pretty useless after you've summoned the first Duranto and the first Duranto sticks, because she's just a 7/4/5 vanilla ward. So if you want a better card, you can use Spring Cleaning just now. Where is it? Here we go. You can use Spring Cleaning to discard her and draw another card, which is probably more useful. So that's gonna be it for SwordCraft.